I think what's happening in our field of conscious people is that we've learned to use that as a tool to help us evolve. When I take ownership and when I take responsibility, then I come into empowerment, right? And then also it frees other people up, like it creates freedom. But what happens when there is somebody there continually taking ownership? It actually is, it's a good phase to go through, but then you come to a point in the process where you realize the one taking ownership is false. It doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
So because and you know that, like, you come to that realization because you keep feeling the sense of I together with what's calm and still and the absolute, and it keeps poofing away, right? And that poofing away, it's like, wow, that thing never actually existed, it was false. So how could it own anything? But that realization comes through the continual ownership. Okay, I need to own this. I need to take responsibility on it. So you can't bypass that part. You have to go through that part so that you gain something actual from that process, which leads to the next step.
This is like how you have to identify before you can release the identity.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like spiritual bypassing. Yeah. Okay, so you've got to take personal ownership before you can resolve that identity.
Yeah, and the process that we're doing, the way of taking personal ownership is owning. It's actually acknowledging what's happening in me. It has nothing to do with owning your impact or what someone else is feeling. It's owning what's happening in me. I'm responsible for the physical sensations, the emotions, the thoughts. And when I viscerally experience that responsibility, it highlights the one who's creating them. And then through the acknowledgement and the inclusion of everything, then you can feel the one who's creating them, and suddenly it's like, whoa, I'm creating all these sensations. I'm creating this perception.
Yeah.
I'm creating the emotion that comes up when someone is engaging with me. There is no greater self-responsibility. And because of that, you can let the one who created it go. So when the one who created it gets let go, the moment is gone. It's not there anymore. There's nothing happening. There is nothing to take responsibility for because it's gone.
Okay.
You get it?
So close. I'm so close to getting it. Okay.
You know, what we're doing together, the whole basis of it is what's happening in my body and what kind of physical sensations are there, what kind of emotion, the thoughts that are occurring here in me. And that simple act of looking at what's happening in myself is the first line of responsibility. Because when something is happening in the world, or in a relationship that I'm having, or in relationship to a situation, then I'm immediately looking back on myself in a very simple way. What physical sensations am I having? What, and allowing, like, everything that's there. So that simple act of looking within to myself is the first level of responsibility. Now, when you are first learning what we do, you spend a little bit of time just in that. What's happening in me when this person says to me whatever, whatever the trigger was. But then when that, and you're holding everything with stillness, then there starts to be a transformation, and you begin to experience the relating in a new way, and you start to express differently in relationship to the other person and that situation. When that shifting starts to happen and the stillness comes together with the activity, there are places where they won't join. They'll be stuck, and it'll be like, what the heck's going on, you know? And you're triggered. You can tell there's separation, but you don't know how to help them unify anymore.
Separation, it's like, just to translate for people, we're just talking about, there's a place where identity is arising.
Right. Okay, so separation specifically between everything that's happening in and around my body, physical sensation, emotion, thought, and what is completely, utterly, deeply calm and still, inactive. Those two things. So we're always noticing first of all, those two things. So when I'm relating with someone and I'm noticing that, I can tell immediately when I'm relating with them from separation of those elements or from unification. And when the unification happens, there's creativity, there's joy, there's movement, there's not necessarily joy. It can also be other things. But the point is it's flowing and moving, and there is no stopping.
Yeah, there could even be anger.
There could be anger, whatever it is, right?
So key.
It could be a ferocity, you know?
Yeah.
So that's already like one level of self-responsibility, right? But then when you notice, okay, things are moving and shifting, and you know what? The last bit isn't coming together. And because that last bit's coming together, when I look at that person, I just think, you know what? No way. I'm this way. Forget about it. Whatever. I'm just going to stay like this. That's when you start to look at, well, what are the qualities of me? Like, who am I in relationship to that other person? When that person is there pointing the finger at me or whatever they're doing, what is the nature of me here? And now you're going to a deeper level of self-responsibility, because you're looking at, well, what is the sense of self that's showing up there? And so if I can start to feel that sense of self with stillness, the sense of self will soften and relax and allow stillness to come in and change its qualities. And when the qualities of that one change, you start to show up differently in the relationship. But it's not because you're thinking, I should be doing this, or in order to be responsible, I need to do X, Y, Z, or in order to take care of someone else, it just flows. Like the new natural response comes up without having to make a decision, without stopping to think, without navigating, without going, how am I going to take responsibility? There's just a flow and a showing up and at a new level of engagement.
And that's arising from, like, that comes when you're holding stillness with whatever is arising as the me.
Yeah. And then eventually, when the me relaxes and dissolves, then the stillness can come more into the activity, so that all three things then are combining. Me, the stillness, and all the activity in and around my body, which makes expression graceful. It makes graceful expression.
Yeah, so someone could be attacking you, and then stillness can respond.
Right. Or you respond from as unified, as the elements are unified. There's a unified response, which means that it comes from beauty and flow and coherence and harmony.
And not through faking it.
Not through faking it or thinking yourself into how you should act, or...
Yeah, there's a big... Because when people hear this and go, okay, I experience it too. Like, I should be calm right now, that this person is screaming at me and they need something from me.
Yeah.
And I'm having this big response, right? So I've got things to examine on my end of what's happening with that level of identity for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not at a place, and might not get to a place immediately of being able to respond clearly until I clear that, whatever is up.
Yeah, exactly. So it can get really confusing when we're talking about mental concepts around this, like, me taking ownership of my impact and responsibility. Well, there's lots of different ways you can come at it mentally, but the only solution is to notice what's arising in you at the time, because that's your path into the creativity around it in a unique way.
Okay, so what arises for me when I did inquire about this, it was I want her to like me.
Okay, great. So that's where you start.
I better do what she wants because I really want her to like me.
Right.
And stay close and keep our friendship.
Perfect. So that's your entry point.
Oh.
And then you look at, you do the thing that by now you have you know how to do it very well, but within the process of honoring everything that's arising, then you zoom in on, well, what is it that wants to be liked? And how does that relate to the experience in and around my body? And is there any separation between that which wants to be liked and stillness? Or the absolute, if that's, depending on your realization at the time of the unchanging, what's calm and still.
So we talked about this before, and you were saying, well, I'm not sure what you said before, but okay, you'll know when all those pieces are unified, there'll be a fluid response, and it'll be different. There's no formula for how to respond to someone who wants this from you.
Yeah.
Right? Do you have an anecdote or a story or an experience that is related to, like, okay, what naturally what's the word? Flowed?
Flewed.
Lord. What arose? Like, what arises from you? Yeah, when you're in that state of unification.
You mean someone who's wanted me to take personal responsibility for something?
Yeah, some flavor of that. And what?
Gosh.
It's like someone wants something from you. And it's not what is naturally occurring for you.
Yeah. So I can think of a situation, it's very personal and involves someone else. And so it's part of the details I won't share because it would breach their privacy. But they wanted me to take an action that involved, like, we had a decision to make that involved both of us. And they wanted me to take an action that I just knew, like, inside myself, that is not the action that I'm going to take. And I was aware that the meeting point between us on this could have meant the end of our relationship. And I still stood strong in that. But what I did was, the reason I stood strong in it, let's say, is because I kept looking at me, like the one experiencing what he was asking of me. And I kept coming to a place of that one dissolving and there being no one. So when I say being no one, I don't actually mean that no one is there. It feels like no one is there because when the identity dissolves, the experience of being a person is gone. And it's more like a unique, spontaneous flow that's continually arising. And each time that unique, spontaneous flow responds to the question, it just happens to be the same response. But it's not because there's someone there that needs an experience or needs to prove something or can't do what the person is asking or, all of that stuff. I don't know, is that a good example?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like getting a grip on, not a grip, getting an understanding of what it's like when you are in a unified state.
Yeah.
It's interesting, even asking the question, I notice, like, oh, that's the navigator. Like, I want to know what, right? It's what I can't know.
Yeah.
And I want a taste of it.
Well, the knowing fixes it. The knowing is identification.
Yeah.
So as soon as there is a knower coming in going, I know that you need to own your impact.
Mm.
It's actually